During ancient China, concubinage was a common practice, particularly among the wealthy and powerful families. Women who were chosen to be concubines were usually from poor or lower-class families and were expected to serve the man and his legitimate wife. While the status of concubines was considered inferior, they played an essential role in the Chinese social hierarchy, providing heirs and additional labor to their masters. As a result, many practices and customs were developed over time, and certain things were considered normal for Chinese concubines. One of the most significant things that were normal for Chinese concubines was foot binding. Foot binding was the practice of wrapping young girls' feet tightly to prevent them from growing and developing normally. This practice was considered a sign of beauty and social status, and concubines who had their feet bound were seen as desirable and attractive. Foot binding was also a way to ensure that concubines were dependent on their masters, as it made it difficult for them to move around and escape. Another thing that was normal for Chinese concubines was their lack of autonomy. Concubines were considered property and were not allowed to make decisions for themselves. They had no say in who they married or when they had children, and they were expected to obey their master's every command. If a concubine disobeyed her master, she could be punished severely, sometimes even to the point of death. Chinese concubines were also expected to be skilled in various forms of entertainment, such as singing, dancing, and playing musical instruments. These skills were considered essential for a concubine to entertain her master and his guests. The most famous of these skills was the art of seduction, which concubines were trained to master. They were taught to be submissive, demure, and coquettish, and to use their charm and beauty to manipulate their masters. Another normal practice for Chinese concubines was the use of makeup and extravagant clothing. They were expected to wear elaborate dresses and accessories and to spend hours getting ready each day. Makeup was used to enhance their beauty, and specific colors and styles were chosen to signify their rank and status. For example, only the most senior concubines were allowed to wear red lipstick, while lower-ranking concubines were restricted to more muted tones. Concubines were also subject to strict rules regarding their behavior and interactions with others. They were not allowed to socialize with other women or to leave their master's compound without permission. If they were caught breaking these rules, they could face severe punishment, such as being beaten or sent away. In addition to the practices and customs mentioned earlier, Chinese concubines were also subject to physical and emotional abuse. Masters often had multiple concubines, which led to jealousy and competition between them. Concubines who were deemed less desirable or who failed to provide an heir were often mistreated or even sold to other households. Physical abuse was also common, with masters punishing their concubines for perceived disobedience or misbehavior. Despite the challenges and difficulties they faced, some concubines were able to rise through the ranks and achieve a higher status. If a concubine gave birth to a son, she would be elevated to the status of a secondary wife, which granted her more privileges and authority. Some concubines even became influential figures in their own right, using their power and influence to influence their master's decisions and actions. In conclusion, the practices and customs that were normal for Chinese concubines were often cruel and degrading, and they highlight the oppressive nature of Chinese society during that time. While some concubines were able to achieve a measure of power and influence, most were subjected to a life of servitude, abuse, and exploitation. It is essential to remember these women's struggles and to recognize the harm caused by the practice of concubinage in ancient China.